Greetings from the Holy Land, Holy Apple. Welcome back. We're not going to sing it. On the third day of ER 5778. And hope everybody had a meaningful Passover holiday. And the title of today's class is, Will the Real Superman Please Stand Up? Will the real Superman please stand up? This tremendous divine providence in this class, what we're about to talk about today, actually, according to the secular calendar, actually happened today. Now, I got a wind of this Superman, about 2 weeks ago, and just found out the date, that the relevant date that we will soon find out happens to be today. So that's the way divine providence works. So put on a seatbelt, and we're really going to go for a ride today, an unexpected one. The Rabbi of Tzanz, a few times in his books wrote, we had a class about this one time, where he mentions, if you notice, it's very interesting, that if you look at two characters in the Bible, you look at Esav and you look at Ishmael, or Christian world, the Moslem world, you'll see very clearly that throughout the ages, throughout history of both those religions, the majority of converts to Judaism have come, the overwhelming amount of converts have come through Christianity, not through Islam. And he discusses in his books, why is this? That it's very rare to see that they are on such a low level. That's what the Tzanz Rebbe writes in his book. They are such a low level that we do not find throughout history many converts from Islam coming over to Judaism, where the majority have been from the Christian world. That's number one. Number two, just this past week, I heard an unbelievable source. The source is one of the key figures in the ethical, in the Musar movement of Judaism 150 years ago. We know that it was started by Rabbi Salanter, and one of the prime time figures in the ethical movement of Judaism, the Musar movement, was the famous Saba Mikelm, the grandfather of Kelm. His real name was Rabbi Simcha Zissel Mikelm. And they found manuscripts in his handwriting after many of his books were published. And listen to what he says. He says something very interesting about Ishmael, about Islam. He writes in these manuscripts that were found, this was also brought down in a journal called Kol HaTorah, which is a periodical journal that comes out. This was brought in. He writes there something astonishing. I mean, it's not astonishing, but astonishing probably that he said it. So the famous ethical figure of Judaism, the Saba of Kelm, the grandfather from Kelm, he writes there that if you look at Ishmael, the father, so-called father figure of Islam, we'll call it, what did he ever say in the Torah? What is recorded? What statements has he made that are recorded in the Bible? Anybody that gives an answer will give you, what do you want? You want, $1 million? We'll give you $1 million. What was ever spoken? What words did Ishmael ever say? And he goes on, well, you could keep on thinking about that, Len, and you call me, call me a couple weeks down the line when you find out that it's a big zero baby. Nothing. We know that there's a lot of wicked people in the Torah that they said things. There's Esau. He had a lot of lines in the Bible, in the Torah, Esau. So the grandfather of Kelm says, why do you think that is? He says, why is that? Because they are further away from the Torah, much further away from Torah than the world of Esav, than the Christian world, much further away. And he writes, not only are they further away, first of all, why are they further away? Because more than anyone else, they represent falsehood. The Torah represents truth. The Torah represents truth. And therefore, the representative of falsehood, deceit, lies, is Yishmael. And that is the antithesis of the Torah. The Torah was given for us to be truthful, to bring ourselves to be truthful. That is why it says in the tractate of Sukkah 52, page 52, it says there that there are 4 things that God regrets creating. And one of the 4, you got it, is Yishmael. Why? Because he's the antithesis of creation. The creation was to bring us to truth. And the biggest con man, the biggest con religion, is this Islam jive. Think about it. Everything is a lie. Everything is a switch. Let's look at the long list. Okay, when do we have a circumcision? We know it says in the Bible that a person is circumcised at the 8th day. Now what do the Muslims do? They have a circumcision at the age of 13. Why is that? Because it happens to be that when the time came for Abraham, when he was 99 years old, so he too had a circumcision. So he also gave a circumcision to his son, Ishmael, at the age of 13. Now if God would have come to Abraham at the age of 100, 120, 140, 150, well, we wouldn't have a Brit Milah at the age of 150. It just happened to be that Mr. Ishmael was 13 years old. But what if he was 14, 15? Who cares? It said, we read it 4 days ago. Remember? I know the Jewish memory doesn't go back that far, but try. 4 days ago, okay? Look on the history in your mind. Push that history button in your mind, yeah? So when you push that interesting button, you'll see that we said, Uvayom hashmini imol b'sar orlato. On the 8th day, you must circumcise that part of the body. So what do? They say, no, circumcision is when? It's at the age of 13. Very interesting. It's a straightforward verse in the Torah. Not only that, they claim, who is the continuation of Abraham? Of course, it's Yishmael. But it says in the Torah, black and white, Ki bi Yitzchaki kareh lecha zera. Your son Isaac will be the continuation. They turn it all around. Deceit, lying, forge. And now, okay, who was sacrificed? Who was binded by the sacrifice? It was Ishmael, not Yitzchak. Very interesting. It says in the Bible, black and white, that God took up to Mount Moriah, God took up his son Isaac. But all of a sudden, presto, Houdini comes out, and all of a sudden, yes, it wasn't Isaac, it was Ishmael. Let's turn everything around. Whose land does this belong to? This is all, believe it or not, this is all in the works of the grandfather of Kelm, Rabbi Simcha Zissel Mikelm. Unbelievable. Whose land is this? This land, everyone knows, belongs to the Jewish people. And all of a sudden, no, it belongs to a people that don't exist. There's a book that a friend of mine told me that he received. It's like 300-400 pages. It's called The History of Palestine. You open up the book, and you know what's in there? Nothing. All 400 pages are blank. That's the history of Palestine. It's 400 pages of blank. There was a demonstration a while ago near the Western Wall with people holding up signs. We would like to boycott Arab technology and Arab produce, but they don't make anything. They don't invent anything, so we don't have anything to boycott. You know what I'm saying here? This is really amazing here. They just switch it all around. Now, it's not a history lesson over here, but it's very interesting. In the 40s, 50s, and early 60s, the Arabs, if you would call them Palestinians, they would become extremely offended. They said, no way, they're not Palestinians. Through the help of Russia, influencing to propagandize the world, they hitched onto this idea later on. But there are quotes, dozens of quotes, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, that the Arabs say, no, we are not, Palestinians are the Jews, not us. So it's unbelievable here, the deceit. Everything is switched around. And here's the best one. Folks, listen to what the great Rabbi Simcha says. He says, listen to this. He says, I'm always strengthened when I think of the tremendous divine providence we have. I'm strengthened. And what strengthens me more is when I see divine providence by the Muslims, by Ishmael. Why? Because they claim their father is Abraham, right? Their father is Abraham. So Abraham is called in the Torah, Abraham the Hebrew, Avraham HaIvri. So they took the name Ivri, and even that they screwed up. Instead of Ivrim, it became Aravim. They got the letters mixed up. Got it? It should have been, they should have called themselves, if they are the continuation of Abraham HaIvri, Ivrim, the Hebrew people, they should have said that we're Ishmael HaIvrim. But they botched even that up, and it became the same letters. Ivrim, Aravim. Just messed it up a little bit. It's like the P and the B. Can't pronounce that letter. It's very interesting how they have a name of a country and a people. They themselves cannot pronounce that P. That B. Very interesting how they're a people and history. So folks, we have it from the Tzanzer Rebbe. He says, look in history, you will see there were very, very few. There were very few converts from the side of Islam because of their lowliness. And we have the Rabbi Simcha Zissel of the city of Kelm in Europe. He's telling us how he was tremendously strengthened by the divine providence that Hashem has showed us, that they've made so many mistakes, that we see Hashem is running the show. They make so many mistakes, the Arabs. They make so many blotch-ups. And you could see the divine providence. This gave him strength to carry on many, many times when he was a little bit down. So we see the forgery.
But some say that the Muslims are not Oved Avodah where the Christians are.
True.
Doesn't that make the Christians on a much lower level?
That is true, but there are, first of all, opinions like the Tzitz Eliezer that there's, for example, you can't go into a mosque because it's considered to be Avodah Zarah. So there are also other opinions that it could be Avodah Zarah. And there's different levels. There's different levels of, it is true that on one hand, it's a much more of an issue, the idol worshipping of the Christian world. That is for sure.
But it also shows spirituality, negative spirituality. It shows.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly my point. We have to understand that when the world trampled and ran after idol worshipping, it was something that was connected to a very, very spiritual way of life. You look today in the world today is just like, is below sea level here. spirituality doesn't exist. At this time, there was a tremendous amount of pull, spiritual pull, that this idol worshiping has. So there's different levels. There's definitely a point that there is an advantage to Islam on a certain point. Okay, so will the real Superman? With that said, what's the connection? Today's Superman, you know, is Superman a Muslim? Have they also adopted Superman as they invented him? We know that Superman was invented by two Jews. Yeah, two Jews. One was Jerry Siegel, and the other one was Joe Schuster. Two Jews. Okay, folks, put on a seatbelt. We're going for a ride here. We're going to introduce today. Today is a special day in the land of Israel, where we remember great Jews that sacrificed themselves, men, women, children, sacrificed themselves for God's Torah, for God's land, for God's people. And we are going to today discuss, and we will remember always, a tremendous Jewish hero. Unfortunately, 99.9% of Jews do not know this Jewish hero. But today, we're going to put it out there, an unbelievable Jewish hero. In the 1926, in the city of Safed, Tzfat, there was born a baby boy to a very nationalistic family in the city of Safed, Tzfat. The name of the baby boy, his name was, I hope I'm pronouncing this correct, it was Hamuda Abu Al-Inyan. That's one hell of a name. That's like, you know, it's like a Karlbach name in the Arab world. You know, there's like 4 names the dude has. I don't know like what they called him for short, if they wanted to call him short. Okay, so he was born to this, the family. His parents' names, his father's name was, of course, Mohammed, you know, and his mother's name, of course, was Fatima. You know, you got to know these names, like real. That was like very original. One might say their names very original. Okay. Now, in his house, we'll just call him for short, we'll call him Hamuda. In Hamuda's house, there was tremendous hate that was spoken and demonstrated against the Jewish people. He grew up in a tremendously ultra-nationalistic, anti-Jewish home. I mean, big time. And our Hamuda had neighbors, some of his neighbors happened to be Jews. So occasionally he would talk to them, and he became very interested in hearing stories about the Jewish religion from his neighbors. Now, of course, his parents, Mohammed and Fatima, tried to discourage these connections. And eventually, Hamuda gets thrown out of his Arab school, and now it's time to find a different school. So he goes to, he enrolls, Hamuda's parents enroll him into another school. There was only a Jewish school in Safed. It was called, the school run by an organization called Alliance. Maybe it's in English, Alliance. And there they taught different languages, and Hamudi was the only non-Jew in this school. He was the only non-Jew in this school. And he began to hear from his friends about stories of the Jewish underground. He began to hear stories about Etzel and about, you know, the Irgun. He began to hear these stories. And he wanted to get to know better Beitar. So he would go in Tzfat, in Safed. There was a big headquarters of the Beitar movement in that area. So he would go to different talks that they would have, different classes, and you can imagine there's an Arab in your class in the Beitar, and they're talking about underground. They're like saying, this dude, Hamudi guy, he must be a spy. This guy is he must be trying to, give information over to the enemy. So Hamudi Hamudi, every once in a while, these Jews would come and they would beat him up. They would jump him and they would beat him up to make sure that he would stay away. But this guy did not stay away. Like Ruth, like the tremendous convert, Ruth, she just kept on coming back for more and more and more. He never gave up. He would come back after he took a beating and he'd say, listen, I really want to help you people. Now you can imagine what was going on in his house. Okay, he's talking, his parents find out that he's going to these Beitar meetings, like, whoa. And, at first they tried to be nice to him, but after that tactic didn't work, so they started beating him up. It wasn't easy. So this guy Hamudi, he's getting it from both sides of the world. He's getting it from them Jews, and he's getting it from them Arabs, his parents. By the way, the school that he was in happens to be the school that a man named Avner Chai Shaki went to school with him. That name should ring a bell. If you've ever been in the city of Safed, right next to the Al-Sheikh synagogue, there's a house, and it says the house of Avner Chai Shaki, who later on would become a member of Knesset to the National Religious Party, NRP. Anyways, they were classmates, the two of them. Okay. Go down some years later. Hamudi, his mother dies, and he's left with his father. His father tries to, be friendly, try to bring him, back to the Arab side of the conflict with no success. So he just tears him apart one day, and he takes off he runs away to Haifa. Hamudi runs from Tzfat. He runs away, and he joins with the Etzel group. He was about 18 years old at the time. He had finished high school. So he joined up with the Etzel, the underground group called the Etzel. And when he arrives in Haifa, you can imagine also here, the organization is very skeptical about this guy here. He's an Arab guy. You could tell right away that he's an Arab. You could tell by his accent that he's an Arab, he's a Muslim. They suspect that we have a spy on our hands. So he's pushing his way. I want to be part, give me leaflets, I want to hang them up, and I want to do various activities. And they gave him many, many tests to see if he was true blue, if he was honest, if he was really true to his colors. Gave him a lot of tests. In the end of the day, they believed that he was for real. At this time when he was 18 years old, he got to know the chief rabbi of Haifa at the time. His name was Rabbi Marcus, the chief rabbi of those years. Once again, he's 18 years old, so 1944. We're up to 1944. The rabbi of Haifa was Rabbi Baruch Marcus. And he started learning Torah, started teaching this Hamudi Torah in order to convert. Okay. One time, Hamudi was on a mission with the Etzel near the Haifa area, and there they were caught by the British soldiers, the British police, caught them, and they were arrested, and they were brought to the latroon facility of like incarceration. Very interesting. The secret police from Britain came to the prison, the latroon prison, called Hamoudi out, and they said, listen, we know who you are. You're the son of the famous family in the Al-Anyan family in Safed, and you know your father has contacted us and he really wants you back. We are willing to let you go scot-free as long as you return to the side. Now this is an undercover, this is a Secret Service British, detective here. He's telling Hamoudi that he's willing to release him 100%, no strings attached, if he comes back to the side of the Muslims and the Arabs. Of course, Hamoudi refuses. He refuses to go for it. And later on, there's about 50 or so prisoners that are transferred from the latroon facilities, and they're brought to Africa. They're brought to Africa, to the Eritrea, to the facility in Eritrea there, Sudanese officers, and there the Haifa prisoners in that facility were kept separate from the other Jewish prisoners there. They were kept separate. So the people, the fighters of the Haifa unit, they were familiar with Hamoudi, but the other Jews in different part of the prison camp there were not familiar, so they were worried. So they tried to investigate to see if he could be trusted or not. Anyways, one day there was one of the Sudanese guards started cursing out the Jewish prisoners. And there was a prisoner, his name was Ezra, I forgot his last name. His name was Ezra. And he refused. He had tremendous Jewish pride. He says, I'm not going to let these people curse us out. And he cursed back the Sudanese soldier. Anyways, this guy opens fire on Ezra. And eventually Ezra was killed due to that opening of the firing on him. And there were also about 10 other people that were injured by these guards, just opening up fire on unarmed Jews. One of the 10 people that were injured was Hamoudi. He had 2 shots that penetrated in the back area, not in the spine, but in the back area. He was immediately taken to a hospital, and there he was given a surgery right away. It was he was like in a surgery for 24 hours, something like crazy, 24-hour surgery. And they weren't sure exactly if he was going to make it or not. He received an unbelievable amount of blood. Let me get the amount. He was. The surgeon was a British doctor. It was a 24-hour surgery, and he received 20 doses of blood. So a friend of Hamoudi came up to him and said, "Listen, you are no longer part of the Jewish people." Hamoudi said, "What? Why am I no longer part of the Jewish people?" He said, "Listen, man. You just got 20 doses of blood, of English, Gentile blood into your body in order for you to survive, because you lost so much blood from those gun wounds. So you're like an Englishman." He said, I'm only joking. Okay, anyways, miraculously, Hamoudi is able to slowly get back, to his health. And he comes back, eventually he's sent back to the cell. And now there's a gigantic plan to dig underground tunnels in order to escape from that prison there in Africa. So Hamoudi, who's still injured, he refuses that he will not be part of the digging of the tunnel to get out of there. In fact, they said, the other Jewish prisoners said, that even though he was injured with a serious injury, he worked better than two fellow Jews worked. Him being injured, he worked better and faster than two Jews. They said they've never seen anything more astonishing than watching him work. He wanted to work, he refused to be switched by somebody. Amazing amount of sacrifice that he had and belief to help the Jewish people. Really amazing. After 2 years of being in this Sudanese camp, he was mysteriously released. He was released and he was brought back to Haifa in Israel, and there he was given a sentence of a house arrest. He had to come to Beit Lead every single day. Anybody that knows, it's pretty far right over there. He had to come down and sign every single day. So that's what the court in Haifa decided, that he would have to be in house arrest and he would have to sign every day in Beit Lead, which today, of course, is right next to Netanya, right outside of Netanya. Okay. Now we're talking about the 1946-47. Hamoudi, now he's in contact once again with Rabbi Baruch Marcus, the chief rabbi of Haifa, and he receives his documents, he's officially a Jew. He changes, the rabbi says, your name from now on is Avraham, the son of Avram, Abraham, the son of Abraham. Anyways, the Hamoudi thought that was a nice name, but he decided to give himself another name. And the name that he gave himself was Baruch Mizrachi. So they asked Hamoudi, why did you pick the name Baruch Mizrachi? He said, listen, when you look at me, if I would have changed my name to Baruch Goldstein, or Baruch Goldman, or, Baruch Schwartz, you just look at me, and you notice, or you listen to me, you notice that I'm an Arab. So it wouldn't go very well. It would be very suspicious if I would have changed my name to Baruch Goldman. But so if this way I call myself Baruch Mizrachi, which is a Sephardic name. So this way people will think that I come from one of the Arab, Sephardic countries. So he took the name of Baruch Mizrachi. Now he's trying to work with the Haifa underground, Etzel, and after, once again, he shows now he's Jewish, and he was a tremendous uplift for all the fighters. Why? Because whenever he would have free time, he would pray. Whenever he would have free time, he would learn. He loved learning the Tanakh, the Torah. He loved reading especially about the time period of the kings, when there were Jewish kings, to see how a Jewish kingdom worked. And he became very, very involved in Jewish history. He learned much Jewish history throughout the ages. And he was more than the majority of people there. He would pray every day, he would have his tefillin. In fact, when he was arrested you know, he was practicing putting on his tefillin, they told him that he can't take anything with him to Africa. And he refused. And, you know, he stood his ground, and eventually they gave a prayer book and tefillin to him before he left to Africa over there. So he was tremendously devoted to Judaism and to religion. Amazing. Okay, anyways, on April 18th, today, April 18th, that's when I said tremendous divine providence. We have this class now, today. And in fact, Mike knows that it could have been we would have had a different subject today. I thought that we would have a different class, not here, somewhere else, at a different intersection, but didn't work out for this week. And amazing, I just found out this morning, this is the time. Baruch Mizrachi, a.k.a. Hamudi Abu Al-Anyan. He was given a tremendous mission. He was sent from Beit Lead. Beit Lead, for those of us that are familiar, Beit Lead is very close. Netanya, very close, 9 kilometers from the area of Samaria. You know, Judea and Samaria. So Samaria is right on the border of Beit Lead and Netanya, 9 kilometers. Very close. And then his mission was to bring a car bomb into the city of Jenin in Samaria, the city of Jenin, northern Shomron. That was his mission that he had to bring. So he went down there he took a bus, he took an Arab bus from the Beit Lead area to Jenin. There were still buses this is 1948. Okay, we have April, so we're talking about 3 weeks before the declaration of the State of Israel on May 5th. May 5th, was it May 5th, 12th? One of those days. Anyways, 3 weeks before. Okay, so he's sent down there, and he's on the bus, he's talking, of course, he speaks Arabic fluently. He's talking to some Arabs over there, and they come to a checkpoint. This is unbelievable. They come to an Arab checkpoint, and the Arab police officer gets on the bus, and he's going down the aisles, looking at all the people that are traveling. And all of a sudden, he looks at Baruch Mizrachi. Now, Baruch Mizrachi, if you recall, he had to sign every single day at the police station in Beit Lead. This officer recognized him from his signing in Beit Lead. Plus, Baruch Mizrachi, as a child, was given a special, I guess maybe this is in the culture of the Muslims or the Middle East, they gave him a special gold tooth. It's not like he had a cavity or something, but they gave him, like, I guess it was a symbol of, of something. And he also recognized this police officer, besides for the face, but what really gave it away was that tooth, that golden tooth that stuck out in his mouth. So this Arab police officer grabbed Baruch Mizrachi and 3 Arabs that were talking with him the whole ride. He became friendly with them. And these 4 people were taken off the bus. And the same day, on April 18th, today, 70 years ago today, these 3 Arabs, collaborators, they said, and Baruch Mizrachi, they were given a trial, and it was decided that that same day, they were in the town of Geva. Geva is a Jewish town that's mentioned in the Bible, and it's right next to 2 other Jewish towns called Chomesh and Sanur. These are communities in northern Shomron that were given away by Israel in the Gaza. When Israel gave away the Jewish communities, they gave away not only Jewish communities in Gaza, but they gave away Jewish communities in northern Shomron. Two of them happened to be Chomesh and Sanur, where Jews lived. So right next to these two places is another Jewish community, I'm talking about biblical Jewish community, called Geva. And it was decided there that all these four people, one Jew, Baruch Mizrachi, and these three Arabs, they were going to be killed. And they killed them, and they were hanged, and they dragged them into a cave in the Arab town of Geva, and they closed the cave. This is April 18th, 70 years ago today. Okay, let's fast forward it. The Six-Day War comes, 19 years later, the Six-Day War. The area of Judea and Samaria is liberated by the Jewish people. And some friends of Baruch Mizrachi, aka Hamuda Abu Al-Anyan, of blessed memory, some of his friends said, listen, we have to find him. We have to find him. Why? When Baruch Mizrachi, when he was injured by the gunshots of the Sudanese guard, a surprise visitor came to him in the hospital. And it was no other than Rabbi Herzog, the chief rabbi of the state of Israel. This was before the state of Israel. The chief rabbi of Israel. He came and visited him. At the time that he visited him, it wasn't sure if Baruch Mizrachi was going to live. It's really a miracle that he lived. Baruch Mizrachi came up to the rabbi. He says, listen, I have one request. If I die, Rabbi, I have only one request. I beg, I want to be buried in a Jewish cemetery in the Jewish land of Israel. That was his request. And his friends, Baruch Mizrachi's friends in the underground, in the Jewish underground, knew this. Now, in 1948 till 1960, there's nothing they could do about it. But now we have these areas were liberated. We have to find Baruch Mizrachi. We know that he was sent to find information about bringing a car bomb to the city of the snakes, city of the snakes, Jenin. That's where the murderers of Rabbi Shevach of blessed memory, they were from Jenin, and many others. So there was the friends of Baruch Mizrachi came. At the beginning, nobody was willing to help. They went to different offices, they went to army. Nobody was willing to help at the beginning. But after a while, they persisted. And we know, as the Holy Gra says, Akshan Matzliach. If you're stubborn, you'll be successful in the end. You'll be successful in the end. You know, today, when I was hitching here, I was at the traffic circle near the army base, and one of the soldiers asked me if I could please stand up behind those, the protective walls of the hitching station. I told him, thank you, but I'm going to stay here in the street. And he asked me again, and he asked me a couple of times, and I told him, listen, I'm responsible for myself. You asked, thank you for asking, but I'm staying here. Because if we flinch, if we bat an eye here, if we show weakness here, we're out of here. They're going to eat us up alive without any salt. So I appreciate it, and the guy just went away. If you stand up, if you take a stand, with God's help, you're successful. Okay, so a journalist named Yecheskel Hamiiri, he started investigating the situation. He had heard about the case, tremendous case, an Arab, a Muslim, who grew up in a hateful atmosphere against the Jewish people, converts against all odds. Not only does he convert, he joins the most serious Jewish undergrounds, you know, the Etzel. Amazing. And he converts, and he's serious about his Judaism, and he's serious about fighting for the Jewish people, and gives his life for the Jewish people. He has a request, a last will. We have to help him out. So he started investigating about what happened to Baruch Mizrachi. Anyways, in the end, he ended up at the village of, the Arabs call it Jabba. The Torah calls it Geva, same word, just with an Arab accent, it sounds like Jabba. And he started going there and asking the locals in the community, have you ever heard of a Jew that was executed by the soldiers of, now this one is a hard name to pronounce, Kakji. He was like the sheriff of that area. Eventually, they found a place where people said that they heard rumors that somebody was buried there. People were buried there. This journalist Yechezkel Hamiiri went up. He found who owned this portion of land where there was a cave there, and he asked them, have you ever heard this story since you've been here all these years? And he said yes, and he pointed to a certain cave, and before they opened it up, he said, you'll find that one of them is there. There's 4 people buried there, he said. One's Jewish and 3 are not. And one was buried, and he showed like which direction, and 3 others were buried in a different direction. Anyways, they were able to identify Baruch Mizrachi because of his gold tooth. Anyways, on October 9th, 1969, 2 years after the Six-Day War, October 9, 1969, Baruch Mizrachi was buried with full military honors as a Jew in the military section of Netanya Cemetery next to Beit Lead. Among the escorts was Menachem Begin and Chief Rabbi Shlomo Goren. If we can get here, I hope to put it on here, is a picture of Baruch Mizrachi. We hope that comes in. If not, God willing, will be on. Now, we said, well, we have to connect it to the title. Will the real Superman stand up? Now, very ironically, Superman, the comic strip, was first published on April 18th. Not the same year as when Baruch Mizrachi was killed in 1948, but on April 18th, Superman, the comic character, was first publicized in whatever it was called back then. Today's date. So we ask, and the answer is very clear. Will the real Superman stand up on April 18th? And it ain't Ken Clark, baby. It's Baruch Mizrachi, a.k.a. Hamuda Abu Al-Amyan, of blessed memory, a righteous, blessed memory. Amazing story. Till next week.